Good morning, everyone. Today I'm telling you a story, and I'm in British Columbia. And wouldn't it be wonderful if some of you watching were also from British Columbia? Today's story is a really interesting one. It's a story about a man named Abraham, and it was many, many, many years after Noah and the ark. And this story is about a man and his wife. The man was called Abraham. His wife was called Sarah. One night, God spoke to Abraham and said to him, "I will make your family very great. All people everywhere will be blessed because of you." Now that seemed kind of strange because Abraham and Sarah had no children. They wanted children, but they didn't have any. Abraham is a very fascinating man. It's interesting that he is mentioned more in the New Testament than anybody else, other than Jesus, of course. And he's referred to in the book of James as God's friend. Isn't that nice? I think that would be a lovely way to be referred to. He was quite elderly when we met him. We don't know much about when he was young. When we met him, he was already 75 years old. And one night, Abraham heard God speaking to him. "All people everywhere will be blessed because of you." And God told Abraham to leave his home. He didn't tell him where he was going. He told Abraham, and Abraham told Sarah, and they both just trusted that things would be all right. They packed up all their animals, all their tents, all their belongings, and off they went. So God led Abraham and Sarah, all their camels, all their sheep, all their goats, all their servants, to the land of Canaan. He told them that this was the land that he was going to give to him and all his people. Now they took a very circuitous route. They went back and forth to many places, but they ended up in Canaan. After they moved around even to Egypt, where there was a great famine, there was hardly any food, they ended up, in fact, in Canaan. And Sarah was much too old to have children after all their travels, so they were pretty sad. But God one night said to Abraham, now this is a wonderful part of the story, "Look up into the sky." So Abraham looked up and saw the stars blinking everywhere. And God said, "Someday there will be as many in your family as there are stars in the sky." That made Abraham and Sarah happy to hear, but thought that was very strange since they were old and didn't have any children. So Frank will now show you pictures about this part of the story of Abraham and Sarah. And next week we will continue with the story and we'll learn that in fact they do have children. See you next week. Bye-bye.
He's got the whole world in his hands. 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 He's got the little tiny baby
Abram moves to Canaan. Abram and his wife Sarah lived in the city of Ur in the Chaldeans, modern-day Iraq. God told him to leave the city and travel a long journey to live in the land of Canaan. God promised Abram he would bless him and make him the father of a great nation. Those who blessed his descendants would be blessed by God, and those who cursed his descendants would be cursed. Abram obeyed and set off with his wife Sarai, his father Terah, and his nephew Lot. When they got to Haran, they stopped to settle. During this time, Abram's father Terah died. By now, Abram was 75 years old. God told him to continue on his journey to the land of Canaan. Abram obeyed, and they traveled south into the land of the Canaanites. They came to a great tree at Shechem and settled there. God told Abram, "I will give this land to your offspring." Abram built an altar to the Lord at Shechem and worshipped him. Abram and those with him then moved south to Bethel. Once he arrived, he built an altar to God in honor of his name. There was a famine in the land. Abram and his family decided to travel south through the desert to Egypt to find food. As they entered Egypt, Abram became worried. His wife Sarai was very beautiful. He feared that Pharaoh might kill him so he could take Sarai as his wife. So he told Sarai to pretend she was not his wife, but his sister. Pharaoh's officials told Pharaoh how beautiful Abram's sister was, and he took her into his palace. He gave Abram cattle, donkeys, servants, and gifts. God, however, inflicted Pharaoh and his household with serious diseases. When Pharaoh found out Sarai was already married, he summoned Abram. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife?" he exclaimed. "Take her and go." Pharaoh gave orders to his officials to send Abram, Sarai, and everyone with him out of Egypt, along with all their possessions. They set off on the way back to Canaan with the cattle, servants, and gifts Pharaoh had given them. They arrived back at Bethel and settled there to live. Abram prayed to God, calling on his name. Abram could now settle in the land of Canaan, the land God had promised him and his descendants. However, he and his wife Sarai had no children, and both were getting older.
Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me, the Bible tells me so. Jesus loves me, and I pray he will keep me till that day. Keep me standing true and strong, singing heaven's joyful song. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.